This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
It's being recorded anyway.
Okay. Good Erev Shabbos, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here in the JM Valuation Group, Chartered Surveyors and Registered Valuers, at the office of my good friend, Reb Josh Morhaim.
Hi.
And I'm very happy to see good friends, Robert Rustin. If I see Robert, and I haven't heard from him in a while, that means my breathing sounds good. Because if it wouldn't sound good, Robert would say, "Are you okay, Rabbi?" So Baruch Hashem, I thank Hashem that my breathing has been restored after COVID. I want to share with you a principle, and based on this principle, I've been working on a series the entire year. The name of this principle we call Davar Yafeh Be'itai, a matter appropriate in its time, and it's based on the following predicate. You know, we read the Torah once a year. We complete the whole Torah. That wasn't always the case. Back in the day, or in Eretz Yisrael, they would complete the Torah once every 3 years. It was a 3-year cycle. So, accordingly, when they used to read the Torah in a 3-year cycle, any given Parsha could come out any time during the year. So it could be haphazard. But now, the official tradition of Jewish people is we finish the Torah once a year. And technically speaking, there are only 2 Parshas that have to be read at a certain time of the year. That is Parshas B'chukaisai, the Teichacha, the stern rebuke, has to be read before Shavuos, and then Kisavai, the stern rebuke in Davarim, has to be read before Rosh Hashana. Other than that, nothing is legislated when it has to be read. But this principle that we're going to learn is based on the idea that if divine providence has it that we read a certain parsha at a certain time, it must be connected to the time of the year, even though it doesn't say anywhere that we have to read this subject at this time of the year. So, based on that idea, I want to analyze what does Parshas Vayakhel, that's this week's Parsha, Parshas Vayakhel, what does this have to do with Adar and Purim time? So I think the answer should be pretty clear and simple. The main accusation of Haman, when Haman comes to Achashverosh to be able to destroy the Jewish people, this is not just a offer. You know, we have to get rid of these guys. But Haman represents the arch enemy of the Jewish people. Haman represents the force of impurity. He's, so to speak, offering an accusation to heaven why the Jewish people are deserving of being eradicated. And his accusation is, Yeshnoi am echad mefuzar mefarad. They are a nation that is disparate. They are not unified, they're fragmented, and they can't get along. And because the Jewish people can't get along, God, you should give me the ability to destroy them. And therefore, Esther counteracts the accusation of Haman with the following: Lech kenois es kol haYehudim. Go gather all the Jewish people. Yeah, gather them and do what? Gather them and now what? No, the purpose is just gather them in one unit, as one entity, because if you gather them, you'll demonstrate that Haman's accusation is wrong. In fact, there are many Sfarim. I'm going to tell you some names of rabbis. It's good just to hear the names. Your soul will be happy just to hear the names of these great rabbis. Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz. You ever hear Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz? You're just so happy to hear the name. Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz. He was a great rabbi, the rabbi of Prague. Also, Reb Shlomo Alkabetz. Reb Shlomo Alkabetz wrote, every Friday night we sing L'chadoidi L'kras Kala. Pnei Shabbos Kala was written by Rabbi Shlomo Alkabetz. The Shlah HaKadosh. Shlah HaKadosh is Rabbi Shai Halevi Horowitz. They all say the plan of Esther was Lech kenois es kol Yehudim. Go gather all the Jews, to counteract the accusation of Haman. Moreover, it's very interesting. If you study the verbiage in the Megillah, you'll notice that when it refers to the activities of the Jewish people in response to Haman, it often uses a Lashon Yachid, a singular language, even though it's referring to the entirety of the Jewish people. So, for example, it says, Nikhalu HaYehudim, the Jews gathered. Nikhalu is a Lashon Rabim, V'amoid, and he stood. It doesn't say V'amdu. Or it says, V'kibel HaYehudim, it should say V'kiblu, and they. It says, and he accepted. In both instances, the Vilna Gaon points out that it uses a Lashon Yachid to show they did it with great unity. Again, this is in response to accusation of Haman. By the way, Haman was following his evil predecessor. We know what nation does Haman come from? Comes from Amalek. When does Amalek come? Vayavai Amalek Vayilachem im Yisrael Berafidim. What does Rafidim mean? Preda, disparity. Haman and Amalek always come when the Jewish people are fragmented. One of the reasons for Mishloach Manos on Purim, there's a mitzvah on Purim, we send gifts to each other, a minimum of 2 different food items. In kindergartens across the Jewish world, they teach that it has to be 2 separate blessings. Blessings on their head, but that is completely erroneous. They made that up. They made up that halacha among a number of other things that they indoctrinate children with. But one of them is that Mishloach Manos has to be 2 separate blessings. It does not have to be. What's the reason for Mishloach Manos? So the opinion of Reb Shlomo Alkabetz, the reason for Mishloach Manos is to show friendship and unity in the Jewish people, to counteract the accusation of Haman that we are a disparate nation. This week is Parshas Shkalim. And there's a mitzvah of machatzes hashekel. Every Jew gives a half a shekel. Come on. How cheap are you going to be? If you're giving, just give the whole shekel already. Why do you have to give a half a shekel? What's the meaning of machatzes hashekel? The Al-Shech HaKadosh brings from the Manos HaLevi that the reason for machatzes hashekel is so that every Jew should feel that he's incomplete without the entity of the rest of the Jewish people. That's the rationale for the mitzvah of machatzes hashekel. So the whole theme of Purim is to show unity in counteracting Haman's accusation that we're fragmented. Therefore, we will suggest that it is very appropriate this time of the year to read Parshas Vayakhel. Vayakhel means to gather the Jewish people as one entity. There is no other mitzvah in the Torah that was bekehila achas. So therefore, in preparation for Purim, some years we read Vayakhel right after Purim, some years right before Purim, but it is very thematic to the whole objective of what we have to work on Purim, and that is Vayakhel, to gather together in one unit. Now, it's interesting, I want to tell you something very important. Jews all over the world say, Shema Yisrael. Hear, O Israel. Hashem Elokeinu, the Lord is our God. Hashem Echad, the Lord is one. And what are we doing? We're saying there's one God. How are we saying there's one God? What do you mean? We're saying it. There's one God. And it matters what we say. How does us declaring there's one God, does that make it there's one God? I want to tell you something very important. A deeper meaning of Shema Yisrael. The word Shema doesn't just mean to listen. Shema means to gather. Like when Shaul had to gather the people, it says Vayishama Shaul es ha'am. Shaul galvanized the people. Shema doesn't just mean to listen, it means to gather together. Now, the Jewish people are the ambassadors of God. So when we're unified, we reflect the unity of God. When we're fragmented, heaven forbid, we reflect heresy. So we say, Shema Yisrael, gather Israel. When we gather as one, then implicit in that is Hashem Echad, there's one God. That's the reason why Zeresh advises Haman, go to the king, Ba'boiker, in the morning. When in the morning? The Medrash says at the time of Shema. Meaning, Zeresh is suggesting to Haman, stop them from saying Shema. Because when they say Shema, they're gathering as one, and your accusation is that they're fragmented. That's why you need to attack them and instigate specifically at the time of Kriya Shema. One last point. The Kehila, the Vayakhel in this week's Parsha, is very thematic to what happened. Because this is in direct aftermath of the Egel, of the golden calf. The Medrash teaches us that Jewish unity is so dear to God that even if we serve idols, God will overlook it if we're united. So therefore Moshe Rabbeinu says, how are we going to get atonement for the Chet HaEgel? How are we going to get Hashem to overlook the sin of the golden calf? So in the immediate aftermath of the golden calf, Moshe says, there's only one plan, Vayakhel Moshe. Now what's interesting, just to point out, by the sin of the golden calf, it says, Vayikohel al Aaron. They gathered as one to Aaron. So to rectify that, they gather now to Moshe for mitzvahs and for the mitzvah of Shabbos. So the Vayakhel was specifically to overcome the sin of the golden calf. Because unity is a way to elicit from Shamayim forgiveness for Avodah Zarah. The same thing happened in the time of Purim. What did the Jewish people do in the times of Purim that warranted the decree of Haman? They bowed down to the Tselem in the time of Nebuchadnezzar. They bowed down to an idol in the time of Nebuchadnezzar. So it's suggested, Rav Menachem Zamba teaches, that the mitzvah of Mishlach Manos is to show unity, to gain atonement for the sin of idolatry in the times of Haman. So basically, Parshas Vayakhel is precisely parallel to the story of Purim. That in response to the sin of idolatry of the golden calf, Klal Yisrael gathered together as one unit, and therefore this time of the year we appropriately read Parshas Vayakhel to overcome the accusation of Haman, to overcome the sin of bowing down to the idol, and therefore Parshas Vayakhel is what we call Davar, Yafeh, Be'itai, an appropriate message just at the right time. So it's great to see everybody. Thank you for your kind attention, and I wish you all a beautiful, wonderful Shabbos, and bracha v'atzlacha. L'chaim.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.